Hello, everyone. I'm Don Ghost, the worst movie reviewer, and today we will be discussing the Fast and Furious franchise. I want to take a look at the past, current, and future movies of this franchise in preparation for the Fate of the Furious coming out very soon.
So remember me when I'm gone.
Been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Hey, thought you could leave without saying goodbye.
Seven, six,
Sure you want to do this?
A
five,
lot has changed.
4,
You're right.
Yeah, Rob, Eddie like them apples! Show off! That's the Brian O'Connor school driving right there, baby!
What is the Fast and Furious franchise about? Well, if you ask me, I would say that this franchise is currently about supercharged and tricked out vehicles, half naked ladies, unbelievable stunts, characters returning when they're supposed to be dead, celebrity dream fights, Gina Carano and Michelle Rodriguez being my favorite. But most important of all, the Fast and Furious franchise is about family. Now, this franchise didn't used to be like this. The first movie, what a lot of people will call a Point Break ripoff, was about tricked out and super fast cars, racing, and drama. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the original series was good or anything, but I remember being a kid back in 2001 when this movie first came out. I was pumped and excited because I got to see some cars racing and some hot chicks. Yes, I had a crush on Michelle Rodriguez, but that's not the point. The original was fun for a kid like myself because it was action packed, the story took place in an urban environment, the characters had edge to them. I liked them. They were the nitty gritty. Everyone was tough and they didn't take any shit. And I like seeing that as a kid. Usually, everyone's clean cut and a hero in these types of movies. But these characters, they were our anti heroes. They were your average everyday people who just happened to like doing illegal shit and illegal street racing. But the landscape changed. The franchise wasn't about racing anymore. Now it's about absurdity, and people are eating it up. The one question that I've been asking myself for a long time is how is this any different from the Transformers franchise? People want to mock and criticize that franchise for being bloated, racist, and absurd. But isn't the current Fast and Furious franchise exactly like that? But instead of having robots, you have superhuman beings who went from illegal street racing to being top secret government agents or something. The only defense I have for the Fast and Furious franchise is Justin Lin. Justin Lin took this franchise and shaped it into what it is today. The directing was the main part, for me at least, as to why I loved this franchise so much. The wide angle shots, the beautiful landscapes, how this movie sucked you into its environment, almost making the area the characters are in a part of the story. The cinematography in Justin Lin's Fast and Furious movies were breathtakingly gorgeous. And what does the Transformers have? Scenes where you can't tell if the Decepticons are fighting the Autobots and you have no idea who's winning. You see, That's the beauty of Justin Lin's Fast and Furious movies. You could always see the action. It was crystal clear, and ridiculous as, the Fast and Furious plots are, they can easily be followed. Fast and Furious 6 is my favorite Fast and Furious movie. We have our main team going up against a team that is just as good, if not better, than our main team. The only negative thing I could say about this is that the bad team doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, and so they're pretty underdeveloped. But Tyrese, in one scene, explains who they are and what they represent in the movie in a clever and funny way. The action in this movie is breathtakingly gorgeous. Every action shot is wide, you can see what's going on. There's a thrill to this movie, like a race against the clock kind of scenario. Dom needs to save Letty from the clutches of Shaw. The team needs to figure out how they're going to beat the better version of themselves. Like I said earlier, my favorite fight scene in the entire franchise and in this movie is the Michelle Rodriguez versus Gina Carano fight. It was hard hitting and tense, and you could tell that both women put their hearts into it and they gave it their all. I don't want to sound mean when I say this, but this scene to me was way better than Batman versus Bane. Even though Batman fighting Bane had more stakes involved, to me, Michelle Rodriguez versus Gina Carano had way better thrills and way better fight choreography. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Now, the story, yeah, it's ridiculous. Vin Diesel flying through the air, catching Michelle Rodriguez is extremely far fetched, but it's so damn intense. It's like the stakes for me were high at that point. Is Letty good? Is she bad? Will she kill Dom? Will she go back to Dom? I mean, of course, she's not going to kill him. He's the star. But that scenario, I didn't know what was going to happen. And him flying through the air to save Letty is a clap your hands kind of scene. If you followed the team up to this point, then I think you'd be emotionally invested in that moment. If you ask anyone who currently loves this franchise which is the best Fast movie, then they probably would say Fast 5, and arguably so. Fast 5 rejuvenated the franchise and delivered on action, grittiness, and excitement. I remember when this movie first came out, I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't like the previous movie, which was Fast and Furious. We'll get to that later. But I remember this movie being released, and I was just like, so what? I would say that I did enjoy the trailers for this movie. Those trailers were really good at getting me excited in a sense. Now I can say that Fast 5 is arguably the best in the franchise because to me, this feels like the darkest of the bunch as far as tone is concerned. I was super surprised that this movie wasn't rated R. One of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is when Reyes' gang has Dom and Elena cornered, and then out of nowhere, Hobbs' unit comes in and just lays waste and sprays everything that's standing. That scene is so fantastic and brutal and violent. And that's the thing about this movie. It's action-packed heavy. It doesn't let up on its relentlessness. It has extreme brutality, and it has an extremely violent nature. And then also, we have to talk about the Vin Diesel and Rock fight. Perfection. Pure brute strength, throwing each other through walls, hitting each other with weapons. That fight is amazing, and it's my second favorite fight in the franchise as a whole. Also, people want to say that this is the Ocean's 11 of the Fast and Furious franchise, and I agree with those people. Seeing the team come together really helped establish the family aspect of this franchise. I know that there are a lot of people who don't like this film simply because they see it as a Point Break ripoff. Well, I don't see it that way. I saw Point Break and I barely remember anything from that movie. And movies always take obvious traits from other movies all the time. Is this an exact carbon copy? Arguably, maybe. But one's about cars, one's about surfing. And I believe those are catered towards two entirely different audiences. The Fast and the Furious was fun. You had cool cars, racing, sexy ladies, not as much fighting as I wanted there to be, and soap opera drama featuring the street racing gangs of Los Angeles. Was this movie fresh? No, not really. But at the time as a kid, I had never seen anything like it. It was adrenaline pumping, and I think it's what made street racing cool. I certainly don't recall street racing being cool before that. And maybe I was too young to realize it, but to me, after this movie's release, that's when I started seeing street racing cars everywhere. I would call The Fast and the Furious a pop culture film because it set the trend for what was cool at the time. Tricked out vehicles, badass characters with edge, people that you look up to when you were a kid and you didn't want to follow the governing rules of society. I think James Dean's Rebel Without a Cause movie is alright, but at its time, it spelled out exactly how the youth was feeling. So just looking at that in a way, I feel like that's what the Fast and Furious movie did. It was a trendsetter expressing how the youth felt at that particular time and how they wanted to express themselves. This is the worst in the new franchise for me. I definitely miss Justin Lin for these movies because to me, James Wan, yeah, he put his own stamp on his franchise with like blurry action scenes, a villain played by the kick ass Jason Statham who just gets sidecast and he gets put on the back burner throughout the entire movie. And there's no rhyme or reason for him just instantly popping up everywhere the heroes go. You could say this movie jumped the shark if they didn't before this. But my thing is, as ridiculous as 5 and 6 are, there was a grounded foundation to them, and they had some sort of levity to them. But with this, Furious 7, it's just balls to the wall absurdity with nothing being interesting or fun. The only redeeming aspect to this movie is how they brilliantly handled Paul Walker's actual death on screen. They handled it with honor and class. They didn't try to make a profit off his death. They wanted to honor the man who gave so much to this franchise, and they did a good job with that. They honored a man who was not only a co star, but a beloved friend to everybody on and off set. When this movie first came out, I skipped it entirely. One day, I'll tell you a little story. I was going to the plasma center. I was there, I donated plasma, and Tokyo Drift just happened to be playing on the television. And that's when I saw it for the first time, and I said to myself, this movie, it's not really that bad. I like the fact that this movie tried to do something different with the franchise. They wanted to take it in a new direction without the original cast, and that didn't work. But I have to say that what they did was pretty ballsy considering the fact that you had Bow Wow in here just for star power. And I have nothing against the man, but at the time, he couldn't act. The interesting thing that this movie had was drifting. I had never heard of drifting before this movie, and I remember that thing, drifting, being cool, and it was the trend at the time, and everyone I knew was talking about it. Some of the action in here was also really good. Again, you have Justin Lin with his eye for capturing really good action scenes in the post-pounding finale. That race and that crash at the end of this movie was pretty intense. I don't like this movie. I know it's nostalgic because it brings the original cast back together after a hiatus on the second and third films, but I just didn't care about anything in the story besides the fact that the original cast was back and they killed Letty. When I think about it, other than that, this film has nothing highly memorable in it except the ending that leads into the fifth movie, which is really cool, but that's it. And that's all I got. Truly the corniest and most cringeworthy out of the series, Too Fast, Too Furious takes the cake as being the worst in the entire franchise. None of the original cast members came back except for Paul Walker. You have some star power with Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, and even Mendez. There's nothing wrong with them. Their performances here, they're good. They're performing what the script asks of them. But how can you have a proper sequel with none of the original cast members? John Singleton directed this thing, and I love most of his movies, mostly his early stuff. But the fact of the matter is, this man has no business directing action movies. I remember feeling like all the racing scenes here were shot on a green screen, and I know the bulk of, the Fast and Furious movies are shot with special effects, but I remember feeling this one being super effects heavy. And I don't like that feeling in my Fast and Furious movies. The reason why I love 6 and 5 so much is because the action scenes feel seamless. Yes, I know that there are special effects present in those movies, but they don't distract me from my overall enjoyment of these movies. They don't take me out with how fake and bad the CGI looks, except for Furious 7. That building jumping scene with the car looked absolutely fake. But then on the other hand, that one scene where they were driving in the caves in Fast and Furious, that looked pretty bad too. But my point is, the bad CGI in Fast and Furious movies started with Too Fast, Too Furious, and it needs to die. Maybe I have some personal vendetta against, this movie. I just didn't like it. To me, this movie is the Batman and Robin of the Fast and Furious series. Yep, I said it. Fast and the Furious franchise is a fun, bloated, absurd, dumb fun action adventure that had polished action scenes in 5 and 6 because of Justin Lin. And now that I think about it, 5 and 6 are my only favorites, and the rest in the series can be incinerated in my opinion. What is the fate of the Furious moving forward? Only time will tell. But the question is, will the fate of the Furious be this franchise's next big blockbuster or biggest disappointment? We shall see when the fate of the Furious hits theaters everywhere April 14th. I'm all jacked up and ready to go, and I hope that the fate of the Furious is much better than James Wan's Furious 7. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.